Some participants actually left the meeting, and that must have been accidentally because of some technical problem. So please ask them to join them. Okay, now can you see? Can you see now the
Yes, sir.
screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is say shaft now. Two shafts are to be coupled, to be connected, rather not coupled, to be connected this way. So this is the intermediate part pin. So this is called as a fork end. As I said, this is a fork, and another fork end. You can say this is, I'll write here. This is, so this is a fork, and this is the single eye, or this is also called double eye, double eye and single eye. This is single eye end, and this is knuckle pin. This is the knuckle pin. This we are implementing. What is more important task is to understand now the types of stresses. See, I told you in the previous lecture so that if you can identify the correct type of stress in the application, your half part is done in the design process. So with this, I want you to take a note of this figure and try to identify what type of stress will be there. What type means we have seen the number of stresses. No, you have seen the tensile stress, right? You have seen the compressive stress. You have seen the shear stress. There are two types of shears. One was called as a direct shear stress, and other was called as the torsional shear stress. Then there is bending also, bending stress, and so on. I want you to know what this type of stress is. Can you, somebody, can you identify what type of stress this is? Anybody?
Shear stress.
Shear
Uh,
stress.
Yes, it is a direct shear stress, because torsional shear stress is what of this nature. If suppose there is one shaft, say, right, and you are supplying some amount of torque, you say torsional moment mt. If that is the case, then every cross section is subjected to torsional shear stress. Here, this is a direct shear stress. That day also I told you that the method to identify the shear is that there is a sliding of the plane. You can see this is two adjoining planes, two adjoining this plane of the this plane and this plane. Two adjoining planes are having some sliding motion, relative sliding. This one. So this is a direct shear stress. So now you can say that whenever this is the pin, and from one end the shaft is connected with this force, and other end again the same force. So what is the likely failure, or what is the likely stress that will induce in the pin is this one, that is the direct shear stress. So therefore, what is my task was, what was our objective, that if this is a application, and if I want to know that under the given forces, direction of forces, what is the type of stress that this pin is subjected to. So answer is, one of the answers will be that the pin is subjected to direct shear stress. The moment we know that this is a direct shear stress, immediately one can write now the equation. Direct shear stress, any shear stress is denoted as tau. So I will say this is denoted as tau. Direct shear stress is equal to force by area. So this is equal to some force divided by area. What is the force? Force is the P. You can say this is a force. You can consider this diagram as a free body diagram, sort of. No, one force is applied here, and the two ends reactions are developed at the two ends. Something like this. You can think of this figure. What is the load? Load is the force. Force divided by cross section area. So this is equal to force P divided by pi by 4 d square, where d is the diameter of this pin, right? So now this is the type of stress. So we understand that the likely failure. See, now I am talking about in terms of design terms. The likely failure in the component is the shear failure, direct shear failure. And therefore, if we want that this failure should not take place, see what I'm saying. If we want that this failure should not take place, then find out the diameter of D. So what will be that? What will be the equation? Tau is equal to P upon pi by 4 D square. So tau is equal to P upon pi by 4 D square. If D is unknown, P is known, tau must be known. And tau is what? What we do? We equate this tau to permissible tau. Now, how we get permissible tau is different thing. We will talk later on about this permissible shear stress. So now permissible shear stress. So equated, I mean, P upon pi by 4 d square. What? See what I'm saying. P upon pi by 4 d square is equal to induced shear stress. Induced shear stress means the stress which is experienced by the material fibers. That is the induced shear stress. P upon pi by 4 d square is equal to tau, that is equal to induced shear stress. But since d is not known, to execute this equation, we must know the value of tau. And therefore, instead of writing the induced shear stress, I am comparing it, or I am equating it to a permissible shear stress, because at the most, induced shear stress, you can afford it to reach up to a level of permissible shear stress. So therefore, my equation now becomes permissible shear stress is equal to pi by 4 d square, and therefore I can find out if this is now known, permissible shear stress by some source, P is known, I can find out the value of D. This becomes my traditional way of thinking in the design process. What we did, we first identified the component in the system, we identified the forces in the system, accordingly we identified type of stress that will be induced in the component which we are talking about in the design process. Then after identifying the type of stress, we have written the corresponding equation of that stress. We have seen now what is known, what is unknown. If the induced stress is unknown, we equate it to permissible stress. Permissible is known by some other source, okay, maybe by material properties, this is known. And then equation becomes that permissible shear stress is equal to P upon pi by 4 d square, where P is known, and I can find out the value of D. Once you get this value of D, now you can say that you are designing the diameter of the pin in such a way that it will not fail under shear stress. This is the whole philosophy of the design, that you identify the type of force, you identify type of stress in the component, you write down the corresponding equation of that stress, then you find out what is unknown, what is known. Accordingly, you take some actions, like here in this case, since induced stress was not known because D is unknown, we found out, we equated the induced shear stress to permissible shear stress this way. So this becomes now known, and that equation, in the equation only D becomes unknown. We can find out the value of D. Once we find out the value of D, I can say that I have designed the pin. I have designed the pin. What is the consideration of design? I have designed the pin in such a way that it will not fail under direct shear stress, because the stresses induced will be up to permissible limit, not beyond that limit. This is the whole design method. This is the approach we should think when we are solving some design problem. So first and foremost thing is to, I'm going very slowly, no problem if I take much time to cover the first unit also, but we must understand first the requirement of the design. We must understand, we must identify the type of stresses first. If you can understand type of stress, if you can write down the corresponding equation, believe me, half part of your design process is done. Similarly, next stage, if you now see the another point, another say way of looking at the same component. See again now same component. Okay. Now just see, suppose it is quite possible that I said that there is some clearance between the fork diameter and this pin diameter, so that this can have some relative motion. I mean, this means this pin can have some relative motion inside this fork. If that is the condition, then it is also likely possible that instead of having the shearing failure, this pin will bend. Why it will bend? Because this is that pin, this is that pin, and this is the connection of the fork, and this is the connection of say single eye. So it is possible that you are applying some force here, this way, this way there is a force, and there can be some reactions here. So this is as good as a problem in which there is one force and there are two reactions or something like this. If that is the condition, we can always understand that this is subjected to some bending stress. So it means that this also can undergo, this P also can undergo the bending. So this is what is shown here. Only thing that instead of showing a single point force, the force is shown as distributed along the surface of contact, because contact is not at a single point, contact is at the several locations. Therefore, the force you can spread, same force you can spread along the some contact area. So this is again something similar to, if I can simplify this this problem, this diagram is very much similar to this diagram. One force and then two reactions sort of. Now how the reaction is taken as triangular portion etc. we will talk it later on. That is not our point of concern now. Our concern is that whether there is a scope of bending or not. The answer is yes, it can have bending. Once we understand it can have bending, it means what we did, we identify the type of stress available. We also identified earlier that the pin can undergo direct shear. We also now are saying that the pin can undergo the bending, right? So when we understand it was a shear, accordingly we have written some equations. Now when we are now saying it is also a bending, I mean that pin also can undergo bending. Immediately I can write down the equation of bending stress. How? We know that bending stress is equal to M upon I by Y, because that also we are told M upon I is equal to sigma B by Y. This is the equation which we know, that is a flexural formula. So bending stress sigma B is equal to M upon I by Y. Now whether, next step is what? Whether this is known or not. Bending moment. Bending moment is known, because if you know the forces and if you know distances, you can always find out bending moment, because bending moment is a function of the force and the distance. So if you know distance and force, you can definitely find out the bending moment. So bending moment is not an issue. It must be known. What is I? I is the moment of inertia, and moment of inertia consists of term of d, because moment of inertia of this circular cross section, I hope you remember this, it is equal to pi by 64 d to the power 4, this way. Okay, so this moment of inertia equation So this is I is a function of d now. What is y? Y is also distance between, those who can recall, those who know the strength of material You studied already strength of material. What is Y in this equation? Y is a distance between the outermost fiber and the neutral fiber. Because if it undergoes something like this type of bending, then the central fiber will be a neutral fiber. So distance between neutral fiber to the outermost fiber, the distance is d by 2, and therefore y is equal to d by 2. It means y is a function of d, I is a function of d, m is known, sigma b is still not known. So if we can arrange from any source sigma b permissible, it means if we know sigma b permissible, then equation becomes sigma b permissible is equal to m upon I by y. If you clearly see the entire equation is only now a function of d, because only d is unknown, you can find out the value of d. Once you find out the value of d, what you will say? You will say that we have designed the pin under bending consideration. It means you have anticipated the failure of pin under bending, and in order to avoid that failure, you found out a suitable diameter, so that if this diameter is used, it will not undergo failure, because the amount of stress will be equal to permissible stress. So it means you are designed under bending. It means now one component can undergo in same application two types of failures. You can also anticipate one failure in shear, this one, and you can also anticipate one failure of the same pin in same application under bending. This is quite possible. In one application, under the action of only one direction of force, the component under consideration can undergo two types of failures, and you have to design the pin so that it will not fail under shear, it will not fail under bending. Now the question comes, if you have got two equations and two diameters, which diameter you will finally select? The answer is then, suppose by the shear failure method, you found out that diameter of the pin is coming somewhere, say 12 mm, right? And by this method, if suppose you realize at the end that diameter of the pin is coming somewhere 15 mm, then in your design process for further calculation, you will suggest the diameter of pin to be 15 mm, because if you take 15 mm, it will be suitable for bending as well as it will be suitable for shear. So these two types of failures can occur in single component. Okay, and you have to think of the all possible ways of failure. You have to find out the dimensions to avoid those failures and pick the maximum one so that it will sustain both types of failures. So the purpose of this entire discussion so far was to make you understand, to make you identify that under the given directions of forces, how the component can fail and how you can anticipate the types of stresses accordingly, types of failures in the component. Is it clear so far? Somebody can reply.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Yes, sir.
Similarly, now today's my job is only to make you understand the types of stresses available. Suppose now I am asking one question again. We have seen so many types of stresses. I again list down here for your benefit. We know the tensile stress, right? We know the compressive stress. We know the shear stress. Shear is of two types, direct shear and torsional shear. And we also have seen sometimes crushing stress. Okay. Now tell me, or just try to identify that suppose this pin is introduced inside this, right? And these two materials, this material and this material, are different materials. Maybe means different properties are there, different strengths are there. And now, after insertion and after having some forces, let us say suppose you inserted this. Imagine that this is inserted inside this. I'm taking outside, let's say this is inserted. Okay, and if I keep this fixed, and if I give some force to this, what will happen? Don't you think that this convex surface of the pin will be in contact with this surface of the single eye? This is called single eye. This component is called a single eye. So don't you think that the surface of the pin is in contact with the surface of this single eye? And since one is fixed and one you are moving, say when you are trying to push or pull, then those will be something compressed like this. No, this is one surface and another surface is there. Okay, this gap is very small gap, say, and you are pulling the surface. What will happen? Don't you think that there will be a possibility of rupture of these two surfaces? Now that surface will rupture first, which will be weak. Same thing is happening here. If you are inserting here, these two surfaces is in contact, and that surface will rupture first, which will be weak. This type of failure is called as a crushing failure. Two dissimilar materials compressed together is called as a crushing failure. Okay, if it ruptures, it means it is crushing failure. So this is the type of failure, is the crushing failure, which is observed in this. We can note again another type of failure you are trying to anticipate in the same application and in the same forces, with the same forces. This is also possible, right? So this is a type of this is a failure type, is crushing failure. Now if you want to write down the equation for the crushing is what? One thing we have to take care in crushing. If suppose two different equations I will give, two different situations. Say this is one plate, okay, and this is, say, another plate. Okay, now two plates are compressed and crushed together. Okay, what do you write? You write equation sigma C, that is crushing stress, is equal to force responsible for this divided by the area of the common area. No, because this is a common area required. Common area under crushing. This is the equation. But if you have got something like this, you have got one surface and other surface something like this, and now one is compressed on the another. This is also a crushing. These two examples are actually same. Only thing that profile of the surface is different, but phenomena is same. But if you have got this profile, then sigma C is written as force upon not the total area, but area is taken as the area under projection. So this is called as a area, which is projected area. Now what is mean by projected area? Projected area is something this. Suppose if this is a cylinder, if your observer is here, what he sees from this observer, I mean, suppose if you think of one plane here, just like orthogonal projections, what you see on this plane you see one rectangle. What dimension of rectangle is what? If this is diameter d and this length is L, then you see one rectangle of d and length L. So this area is called as a area under projection, projected area. So for this cylindrical part, the area under projection is a rectangle of dimensions d into L. So this area is projected area. Therefore, considering this thing in mind, that whenever you have got something like this surface, the area is taken not the actual area is taken as the area projected. So therefore, with this, equation becomes this one. You can see now the crushing failure of the single eye is now equal to P upon B into D, because B is the length which is in contact, because this is in contact. When you insert the pin, which length of the pin will be in contact? B length, because the width of this is B. Therefore, B width of this will be in contact of this. So that's why B becomes a length, and diameter D becomes the B into D. That's why the crushing failure is equal to P upon area projected, and area projected is equal to length into diameter. So length is actually here B into D. Now note here, I have written here sigma C of P or I, both. Why both? Because it depends on which is weaker. So therefore, if I want to execute this equation to get some unknown, and if I want to equate this to permissible, there will be two options. Which two options? Either I may have sigma C permissible, sigma C, that is crushing stress permissible for pin material, or I can have sigma C permissible for I material. These two materials can be different, and I will select that material which is weaker, because accordingly I will get dimensions. So it will be suitable for the weaker material. If that is suitable for a weaker material, it will be definitely suitable for the strong material. So this is the crushing failure. Again, the purpose of this slide was to make you understand a type of the stress induced with this. A type of stress induced here is now the crushing stress, because they are in contact, and to the similar part they are in contact, and they are now compressed. Okay, they are pulled one over the other, and that is why the corresponding stress will be a crushing stress. And if it fails, it means which will fail? The failure of this surface, either this surface will fail or this surface will fail. It depends on which is weaker material. So if any of the surfaces fails, I will say that it failed under crushing. And corresponding equation is now this one. This equation can be further executed depending on something is unknown, something is known. Depending on that, you can find out the unknown things. Same thing here. Just note a difference between these two slides. Here, I had taken the single eye and the pin. Now I am taking the double eye or fork and the pin. Again, the phenomena is same. You will insert this inside this, right? Some will be, this will be pulled, because this will be pulled on this side, this will be put on this side. That's why the some length of this pin will be in contact with the fork material. Now, if I ask you how much length of the pin will be in contact with the fork material, the answer is 2 times A, because this will be inserted. One part A length will be in contact, another part A is in contact. So 2A length will be in contact with the pin. Again, they are under crush, and therefore, very simple. If you understand the previous equation, you can understand this equation also. It will be sigma C of what? Sigma C of a fork or pin. Both you can write. Actually, you will take, depends on which one is weaker, is equal to force P divided by area under projection. If these are two inserted, if you see from this end, what you see is a rectangle of length equal to 2A, because that is in contact. 2 times A becomes length into B becomes diameter. This will be our area under projection. This becomes my crushing equation. You can see now the same thing written. But if it fails, again it means who will fail? It depends on the strength of the material. If pin is weaker, pin surface will crush. If double eye or fork surface is weaker, its surface will fail. But in which criteria it will fail? It will fail under crushing failure. An equation corresponding we can then write down. Then we can execute this equation. You can use this equation to find out some unknown dimensions of this component. So this is a crushing. Now another way, all we are trying to anticipate how they can fail. So this is another way of looking at the failure. This is a single eye. It means this component. This component it means, right? And it can fail this way because it happens that this is very strong. Pin is very strong, will not fail. Possible. So therefore, this single eye can fail. If it fails this way, what this will be called as a? This will be called as a tensile failure. One thing you note, whenever you say tensile failure, the two surfaces separated from each other. No, they get separated from each other. That is a identification mark of the tensile failure. You can see now this surface and corresponding surface here, these two surfaces which actually was a single surface now earlier before failure, they are now separated, moving away from each other. That is tensile. And earlier case, if it is sliding, then it is a shear. If two surfaces are sliding after failure, it is a shear failure. If two surfaces are separated from each other after failure, it is a tensile failure. So this is a tensile failure. Now, again, one part is that I identified the way of failure. I anticipated that this can fail this way. And I said that this type of failure is a tensile failure. The next is then to write down the equation. Equation is what? Equation is tensile stress sigma T is equal to some force divided by cross-sectional area. Which cross-sectional area? Cross-sectional area under failure. It means this cross-section which is shown as hatch and this cross-section area which is shown as hatch, because here there is no material, there was a hole. So that's why these two surfaces together will form the area under failure. If I want to write down in mathematical terms, what is the equation of that area? It will be equal to, this is equal to B, this is equal to B, this is equal to, this is entire is DO, and this is D. I hope that this length is equal to DO minus D divided by 2. And if I add this length also, then it becomes DO minus D. This is that area of this rectangle, one dimension. Other dimension is B. That's why it is a B. So that can be a area of failure. So your equation is sigma T is equal to P upon D into DO minus D. Now again, if we want to equate it to permissible, we'll say sigma T is equal to permissible. Who will give permissible? Permissible is given by the material and its factor of safety. That we'll see. But this is known, is equal to P upon remaining things. You can find out unknowns, because maybe earlier you must have found earlier some of these parameters. Maybe it happens that you will get only one unknown, and that unknown you can find out. So if you can find out that unknown, what you said? You said that you found out that value of unknown considering the failure of the single eye in tension, or by considering the tensile failure of single I. This way you can use this equation. Same thing was in type actually sigma is equal to P upon B into dO minus D. I already explained to you. What about this? This is another failure. Another way of failure. It can happen this way also, that there is a pin here, inside this, and pin is, let us say, pin is stationary, suppose, and you are pulling this way. Then what will happen? It may happen that this is so weak in shear that this part of the material can be slided out. Now, when I say slided out, sliding takes place. It means this must be shear. This must be shear. Which shear now? Direct shear, because there is no torsion. Direct shear. So this type of failure is a direct shear failure. If it is direct shear failure, one part is done. That is what? I anticipated the failure. I anticipated the way of failure. The way of failure was shear failure. This is imagined in my, I imagined this as a designer, that it can fail this way. Next step is now what? To write the corresponding equation. I am saying now that this is a direct shear is equal to force upon A, equal to force upon A. What is A? A is area under shear. Which area under shear? Area, this, what you can see this way. This is not actually clear in three-dimensional. If I draw this same figure in two-dimensional view, this is that outer diameter, this is that inner diameter, and this is something like this. This is the side view of this. Now, if I see from this end, what you see is this picture. Now, I am saying that this much part is removed. Can you see this? This much part is removed. This is removed part. If I remove it, now this area, actually I want to find out this, and the area, bottom area, just mirror image of this at the bottom. These two areas will be area under failure. Now I want to find out the area, which area this is in terms of some equation. So what is done? Again, I will draw it little larger figure. This is that outer, and this is that inner. The total diameter is said to be, say, DO, and this smaller diameter is said to be, say, D. If so, it means what? It means if I say this length will be equal to this length. I mean, this length will be equal to DO minus D divided by 2. Is this length? If this is the length DO minus D divided by 2, this also must be the length DO minus D divided by 2. So same length DO minus D. So if this is a length DO minus D divided by 2, approximately this length, if not known to me, I will also take this length as same length DO minus D divided by 2, because I don't know the length of this. I know by geometry, I know this length DO minus D divided by 2. So I want this length because this much is this plane is being slided out. Similarly here, these two planes are slided out. If these two planes are slided out, this dimension is equal to approximately equal to DO minus D divided by 2. Actually, this length is DO minus D divided by 2, but this is very close to it. That's how you can say that this is also approximately equal to DO minus D divided by 2. So DO minus D divided by 2 is one length, DO minus D divided by 2 is another length, right? Into this dimension. This means this dimension. Now this dimension is equal to B dimension. B, because this was given, earlier figure was mentioned. This is equal to B. So therefore, what is the area? What is the area? I write it right here. Don't you think that area is equal to now It is a rectangle area. This is a rectangle area. So one dimension of the rectangle is DO minus D divided by 2 is one dimension, that is this dimension, into this dimension, into B. This will give you what? This, whatever I have written so far, this is equal to this area. This area. Similar area is there on the bottom side also. That is why into 2. So 2 can get cancelled. Remaining is tau is equal to P upon DO minus D into B. This becomes my what? Equation of direct shear stress in the fork, sorry, in the single eye. So what I did so far, I anticipated the failure in various modes. One of the modes which I anticipated was this one. This was direct shear failure. Later, I have written the equation, corresponding equation for this. This is the corresponding equation. And now this can be equated to permissible. So this can be known value. This is known value. Remaining are 3 parameters, DO, D, and B. Maybe earlier, from the earlier solutions, you must have found two out of these 3. Only one can be unknown. You can find out that known value. That becomes your design solution. It means what you did? You identified, you anticipated the failure of the single eye in this mode also. Accordingly, you written the equation, you found out the answer. That answer will suggest that if you follow that answer, if you take that value, it will not fail under shear because you are taken equal to permissible shear stress. So again, the purpose of all these slides so far is to just to identify the ways of failure, the modes of failure, label that mode of failure, anticipate that mode of failure, label it, write down the corresponding equation, find out the area, and then think of what is unknown, what is known. Accordingly, take the actions like equating it to permissible shear stress, etc., and find out the unknown things. That is what approach of having the design solutions. So again, same thing actually I had written, only thing this was typed, this actually I explained it. Now, there will be a, this we said that just now, this is a tensile failure of single eye. On similar lines, there can be a tensile failure of fork. The difference only is there that here there is only B length available. In the fork, there is another leg is also there, which will also have some other dimension. Is it not? This way? 2. This is say A and this is also A. So there are 2 lengths in the fork. But procedure remains same. And therefore, if tensile failure of single eye, if you can find out the equation of this is this one. Now I am saying that there can be a tensile failure of fork. The difference between single eye and fork is only in that there is only B length and there are another A length also. Just like this. This one. Here there are 2 lengths AA. And therefore, only thing is that if you replace this B by 2A, you will get the corresponding equation of tensile failure of fork. Why? What you did? Simply B is replaced by 2A. See now this equation. So you get the value of or equation of tensile failure of fork, similar to the tensile failure of single eye. Then shear failure of single eye. We have seen the shear failure of single eye. This length was B. Now the length is not B, length is 2A in a fork. What would you do? Simply replace this B by 2A. You should get the equation of shear failure of fork. So shear failure of fork similar to shear failure of single eye. Tensile failure of fork is similar to tensile failure of single eye. Only replacement of B to 2A. This is the only replacement, otherwise it is a same thing. Right? I hope you are following these things. This is only important thing in design, that you must identify types of stresses. First of all, you should know what are the types of stresses, and in a given application, you should understand the type of failure in which mode it can occur. Mode means tensile mode, shear mode, torsional shear mode, direct shear mode, bending mode, etc. You should understand the mode of failure. If you understand the mode of failure, immediately you can write down the equation of failure equal to force by area. Right? Area you can identify very clearly. This is something, some experience sort of, or some judgment you require, some experience required of solving different numericals. Then you can easily find out the area of failure. Once you write down the area of failure, then remaining is only to numerical solution, putting some values and finding out some answers. So this only will be remaining things. Okay. So before I give this also, what you say, attendance link also first. Attendance link I have sent actually. Okay, you can fill the attendance. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is so far what we did. We discussed this knuckle joint only. So knuckle joint. Directly or indirectly, actually we started design procedure. Only thing that in the discussion so far, the focus was only to identify the various types of stresses, various types of failures. Write down the equation of failure. Write down that equation. Trying to find out some unknown. This is the focus of earlier discussion. Same thing, but if you understand, if you write in a very formal way, step by step, that becomes your design procedure, because somewhere you are finding out unknowns. Finding out unknowns, finding out dimensions is nothing but one of the steps in the design process. So therefore, if you understand by this that what we are trying to do in all the such design problems, every time you will have some application. You will form that application, you will find out what is the function, how it is operated. Because unless you know the operation, you cannot find out the how it is going to behave, how it is going to have the motion. So you should know the function of that element, how it is rotated, how it is moved, etc. Okay, this way. Then determine the forces acting on element. Here, P was given directly. Sometimes forces are not given directly. You have to find out the forces. Suppose somewhere only motor RPM is given, motor power is given, you have to find out the torque and the forces. So sometimes you have to do some extra calculations to find out the forces. Then select a suitable material. Now at this point here, I want to make it very clear. Material, when you select, you always select. Material selection means not only name selection, name of material is FG200 or mild steel. Name is not important for us. We know, or we must know what is the value of properties required. For example, if I am saying that I have selected say FG200, or I have suppose selected some Fe 200, whatever, some material, I must know what is the property. In this case, if I am selecting Fg 200, it means that ultimate tensile strength is equal to 200 Newton per mm square. Right? Sometimes some other material is given. Immediately you should ask what is the SUT and SYT. Now SUT is more suitable for brittle material because the discussion we have seen already. Because for a brittle material there is no existence of SYT. Only SUT is there. Why? Because a stress strain diagram chart graph of brittle metal is this way, directly breaks. There is no indication of failure. Whereas in ductile material, there can be a something like this. Breakage is here, not here. This is an indication that further if you load, it will break. So this is a yield point. So ductile material has got the existence of yield point, SYT, whereas brittle material has only SUT. Therefore, if it is a brittle material, you will say that permissible tensile stress is equal to SUT by factor of safety. This actually we are seeing when we discuss factor of safety. And if it is a ductile material, I will say that permissible sigma T is equal to SYT by factor of safety. See, in the previous slide somewhere we mentioned that we have to find out the permissible shear stress, and the question was there that therefrom we get the permissible shear stress, permissible values. So this is a way of getting permissible values. I can get the permissible tensile stress is equal to SYT by factor of safety, or I can get this is for ductile material, and I can get the permissible value of tensile stress is equal to SUT by factor of safety in case of brittle material. Okay, so when I say select the material, it means that select the material along with its properties. Material name is not important for us. We know the we should know the value of properties which are required in the design process. Once we know this, it means we know permissible values. Then you find out determine the failure mode. Failure mode means anticipation. Just like we did, we anticipated that pin can fail under shear. We anticipated that the pin can fail under bending. These are all failure modes. So determine the failure modes. Then write down the equations, and from those equations you will find something unknown, and those unknowns are nothing but your geometric dimensions of elements, right? And then for some other purposes, maybe some assembly purpose or manufacturing purpose, if your calculated dimension not suitable, you can little modify it. That can be done in some cases. And then once you do it, prepare your drawing. This becomes the process through which I should go for each and every component. So that's why I have written here this design of individual component. When I am talking about individual component, this should be in my mind that what actually I want to do. What is meant by design of individual component is this actually I mean, right? So I hope I clarified the many things. Maybe next lecture we can actually solve one numerical on knuckle joint. Of course, one thing which I should not forget here, whenever you find out the geometrical dimensions of any element, sometimes there are some proportions. Sometimes there are some proportions which we have to understand. Some empirical relations with which you will find out the geometrical dimensions. Every time it is not necessary to use the equations. There are some cases where you can use the proportions and which are very well accepted universally. For example, what is meant by that? Let me very clarify at this moment only. Here, here, just note here, somewhere written at D1 is equal to 1.5. This actually not written at 1.5D. What does this mean? That diameter of pin I can find out by some equation of failure. Once I find out the diameter of pin, I can find out the diameter of this collar as a proportion of the diameter of pin. It is 1.5 times D. It means I have not written any equation of failure for this. I did not anticipate this failure, right? I have just simply followed the equation which is universally used in all the related design literatures. Therefore, this also you should keep in mind that whenever you are finding dimensions, sometimes in the solution will come across that we are using some proportions only. And those proportions are actually universally accepted in the design process. That's why we are using it. So this is a whole approach of solving the design problems, right? So here we will.
Sir, the link is not working.
Today also link is not working.
No.
What did it says?
Already responded.
Okay. Actually, I enabled it today. Anyway, next time I will check it first. Today I am giving in just 2 minutes. I will give another link. This will work. See, actually, when I talk, when I present my slide, I don't pay attention on the chat actually because that's not visible from my end when I present. That's why whenever something, if I'm talking and if you want to interrupt me, you please, somebody can raise a voice. Those who already left the meeting and not responded in the in this form, please ask them to fill the form so that their attendance will be marked. Otherwise, they will be treated as absent. Is it now working? Somebody can reply?
Yes, sir. It is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So those who already left, they did not find the link working and left. Please ask them, in our informal, you must be having some informal WhatsApp group. You please post that this link is there. If required, I can send this link also.